All right. So just wanted to go ahead and take this time to, I guess, present what I would typically maybe do during a visit with a prospective student athlete. So I figured I would just put together a little presentation to hopefully give anyone that's watching this a feel for our program, particularly on the sprint side here at Johns Hopkins University. And so this photo was actually from our very first volunteer captain's practice back in September. That's why I'm not present. I can go into that later on in this presentation. And so they had sent it to me, so I figured I would use it for this. All right, so just to kind of give you a little bit of a feel for myself, I am Shedrick Ellie III. I am the sprint coach responsible for the sprints. You say long hurdles, intermediate hurdles rather, at Johns Hopkins University, and I also do work with the 800-meter runners as well. I am now in my 9th year as of this recording, so hopefully I'll be using this video though for quite some time, so it might be my 10th or 11th year when you see it, but I'm currently in my 9th year as of December 8th, 2022. And just to kind of give you some background about myself, I'm married, so that first photo is myself and my wife. Actually, one of our former athletes at the time, shout out to TJ Reeves. I believe this was our 3rd year of marriage. So this might have been like 2017 or so. I believe he took this photo for us. And so I came with the creative idea. In my 9 years here at Hopkins, I'm kind of working backwards. The middle photo, I also coached high school. So you could probably have seen this from maybe my JHU athletic profile. I coached 8 years rather of high school at Western Tech, where I also graduated high school from way back when. And so I coached high school track and field and cross country from 2006 to 2014. So the photo in the middle is from my last year there, where I had 3 athletes that were blessed to receive full scholarships to, 3 awesome institutions. And then prior to that, I myself was also a collegiate athlete at Division One. It's a private Christian school called Gardner Webb University in North Carolina. It's a small little Division One school down there. And so ran the 400, 4x4, 800, cross country, 4x1, and had a really good time during that phase. So just kind of giving you a little feel about myself. So bringing it now, fast forward back to here at Hopkins, I actually first got in touch with, this is our head coach, by the way, Coach Bobby Van Allen. I believe he is now in his 25th year, if I'm not mistaken, as of this recording. And so he has been here for quite some time. We first got in touch. I reached out to him actually on Facebook, I believe, my last year at Western Tech. So that was that 2014 timeframe, just, expressing interest in looking to coach on the collegiate level. And so immediately wrote me back. We ended up connected, and I actually came to find out that he was a teacher at my high school, which was Western Tech, way back when I was in high school. And so that was, you're talking, 2000, 2001, 2002, and I had no idea. And so he had always kind of, kept track of me once I had left, competed collegiately, and then also came back to Western and began to coach there. And so he gave me the opportunity to come on. I fully bought into his vision and still am in regards to, well, I'll talk about that later, but with his vision. And so I've been here ever since. My first 3 years were part-time, but then since 2017, I was elevated to full-time. And that's what I've been doing since. And so this was actually a photo from, this was this past outdoor season. So the 2022 outdoor season up in Ohio, where our women finished 3rd as a team. And so I just like this photo, so I tend to use it a lot. All right, so just to kind of give you a little bit on, I guess, my philosophy, because that tends to get asked. Generally speaking, well, just to kind of explain some of these photos. So this photo was actually, Jesus, this was a while ago. This was before COVID, so I want to say that had to be 2019. One of the things that I always like to do was pretty much have all of our athletes over to our home. And so with my wife and I, and when we didn't have a home, we would try to do this in our apartment. And so it was either starting the school year in September or at some phase of the school year, just try to get everybody over, whether it was in, per team, as in the women or the men, or just having everybody together. And so that actually is the third, kind of the third point that I mentioned in regards to being a relationship driven approach. But I'm gonna work back at the top. Generally speaking, if somebody were to ask me, like, how do I what are my beliefs, what am I looking really to promote, or really what is the foundation for how I engage as a coach. And having coached high school, and been a part of the public school system, the at-risk school system, and then coming to a school like Hopkins, those are three completely different environments. And so I've certainly taken a good bit from all of those experiences. But the first thing I really like to do is challenge the way that an individual thinks, a prospective student athlete or a student athlete rather. And so when I say challenge, it's just simply pushing you to grow, and just continue to grow in those situations. And so that obviously comes down to, and you've probably already read this, who you are. And so when during the pandemic, and I've still done this now, even when I meet with recruits, although that is a lot less than what it used to be. One of the first questions that I asked them to do, but I especially was doing this virtually, was, hey, I want you to take yourself out of the confinement of seeing yourself as a student and an athlete, even though those are two big parts of who you are, and describe yourself without using those two aspects of your life. Now, you're probably going to find that obviously, if let's say I'm a hard worker, well, that's probably going to show itself up, in the academic arena or the athletic arena, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm really asking them to strip themselves of some of the two biggest parts, I'm assuming, of their lives, and then express themselves, from that concept. And a lot of people, when we'll, really get to that, sometimes have a challenge being able to do that. And part of that is important to me because once you are here, assuming everything works out, is really, really being able to really enjoy the process. And not that it's enjoyable every step of the way, because there's going to be a lot of challenges, problems, whatever you want to call it. I like to use the word challenge versus problems because you can see it as something that you can overcome. That goes to the second thing that I mentioned, is how you see and perceive yourself. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I want them pretty much going back to who they are. Well, I'm gonna just go ahead and jump into here since I already got here. So I'm going to challenge, how you see yourself and how you perceive you, others, failure, obstacles, challenges, situations, and then really how that all helps propel you into your next stage of life. And when I say next stage, I don't even necessarily mean once you, graduated and you're now in the graduate arena or in, the marketplace or the workplace, whatever the case may be, or a husband, wife, whatever the case may be. I simply mean you progress to the next day, you get to the next week, or you get to the next month, you get to becoming now a sophomore or a junior, senior, fifth year, whatever the case may be. And so it's really being able to stay in the moment that you're in, take what you're in and apply those lessons learned, whether that is, and again, opportunities of failure. Hey, you didn't respond the way you should have responded. All right, bet. Well, this is now opportunity for the next day to go ahead and make it right. And so challenging the way that you think, how you see, how you relate to others, your teammates, your friends, families, coaches, professors, whomever. I'm really looking to help push you to grow in those areas. I can definitely say this, having been here again, this is my 9th year here at Hopkins. One of the biggest challenges that we tend to face with that 18 to 22 age group is really how to manage conflict and really be able to see it in a healthy way. That conflict is okay. Conflict simply being there might be some disagreements or whatever the case may be. Many will run from it or try to ignore it. I'm actually asking them to face it head on. But the way we go about it, how we can manage our emotions through those situations, how we can effectively communicate what needs to be communicated, maybe what doesn't need to be said, how we go about saying these things. And so that I take, that is a big part of my responsibility. I see this is not in my job description. This is just for me personally, being able to help those in this 18 to 22 age group and beyond, continue to progress in those areas. And so that really flows into my last point that I listed in this being a relationship-driven approach. The relationships for me are the biggest thing. For some people, that's probably generic, and maybe you've heard that a whole bunch of times. For me, that is crucial to my core. This is now, as of December 2nd, 2022, my 17th year in general, I guess. Yeah, this is my 9th year, 17th year in general of coaching. So I've been doing this since I was around 21, 22. When I came out of college, I left this out of my background, but After I was competing at Gardner Webb, I ended up transferring into Towson University, where I did not compete there. But in order to get my degree, that is what led me into high school coaching, because we had to do an internship. And so I just, my advisor at the time suggested I go back to my high school and simply find a way to get involved. And so I went back to my high school, got involved, and was like, hey, why don't you, go ahead, take advantage of the go coach. And so I was doing that while I was in my 5th year at Towson. And so that developed my love for something that I was already passionate about, the sport. But then I began creating relationships with these individuals. And obviously, we're closer in age at that time. But then as I've gotten older, the age gap has certainly expanded. I've matured. I've grown, and all those types of things. But those athletes are still a big part of my life to this day. If I had showed you the video of my wife and I's wedding from 2014, most of the people that were in attendance were either my current athletes or some former athletes and their families. And again, we open up our home to our athletes, like all of that. There's so many things I can go into, but I don't want to make this video that long. But being able to still keep in touch with them and really allow those relationships to turn from especially once they've graduated, from being a coach to an athlete to really being friends or a mentor or whatever the case may be. We just had a couple former high school athletes rather, and they're 27 and 29, come over last week. And so, during the holidays and Thanksgiving time, and that tends to be the norm. And I'm very grateful for that. And so that is why I continue to do this. All right. And then shifting gears slightly. So Hopkins at a glance, just to kind of give you a feel for things. Well, first off, check out their website, our website, jhu.edu. Take advantage of the virtual or in-person tours that are available to you. So they'll give you a good bit of information. I'm just kind of touching on things I'm assuming you've probably already done your own research, so to speak, hence why you wouldn't probably even be on this video. So as of now, Hopkins is a top 10 ranked U.S. news school. I believe we are currently number 7th as of now. We have over 80 majors. So we're not just a STEM school, so not just science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We do have other majors that people are a part of. Economics, you have writing majors, journalism. There's a lot of other things outside of just a typical engineer pre-med. Yes, that tends to be our majority. And you could probably say the same thing about our athletic teams. Makeup from an academic standpoint, but there are other majors, English, so there are other majors that we have. We have a lot of people that double major or minor, and take advantage of some of their other interests in the midst of that, and not even shifting gears, but flowing with that, the flexibility to change your major. So Hopkins doesn't have like a specific core curriculum outside of biomechanical engineering, so BME. Outside of that particular program, you're pretty much able to shift from one major to another without having to take an extra semester or 2 semesters or whatever, because your courses are pretty much interchangeable depending on the major that you, not depending on the major rather, but your courses are basically interchangeable outside of BME. And so just kind of wanted to highlight that. And so that is certainly one of the things here, because most people, I believe the statistic is like around 60% of people or so. I might be incorrect on that, but I know it's a good bit. So I can probably say at least half end up changing their major over the course of their college career. And so being that Hopkins doesn't pigeonhole you in a route that you have to take this way because you felt like at 16, this is what you wanted to do, where once you became, 19 or 20, hey, you know what? I don't feel like I'm interested in this anymore. Let me try this. I changed my major. It was slightly different. I came in as an undergrad at business administration, ended up shifting it to sports management. And when the opportunity presented itself. So just wanted to kind of highlight that. Numerous opportunities for research, internship, studying abroad. I actually had a young lady yesterday that emailed me, texted me rather, to give me a heads up for over intersession. She'll be going to Mexico, for a week or two. And so just kind of, wanted to try to plan how she could possibly train there. I've had athletes over the years, obviously COVID threw a wrench in things, but I probably had at least 1 or 2 athletes each year end up studying abroad, whether it was during the fall semester. Most will do it during intersession, which is like our little mini semester, which is basically the month of January for the most part. It's like a 3-week period where you're able to take classes. Most people don't, but you're able to kind of take classes, a class rather, or I think you can take a couple classes. And so some people do it, but that's usually also when they might go, study abroad. Whether it was, we had a young lady right before the pandemic, she was in Spain. I think another one was in Germany, another one was in Japan. So hey, you can take advantage of it, go for it. I had a young lady before in Costa Rica. So there's plenty of opportunities in regards to that. Academic resources available. Your first one is going to be your academic advisor. However, in addition to that, we have a student athlete academic advisor as of this video. That is Steve Malvaso. He's been here for quite some time now. And so you would meet him, probably within the first couple of weeks of being on campus as a first year freshman. And so Steve is there to assist you. Now you have to reach out, and that is going to be something that you'll probably hear from in the next slide. You'll have to take the initiative, but once you connect, he can help guide you when it comes to how you're even doing things with your actual academic advisor, what support you may need as an athletic student here, et cetera, et cetera. In addition, a website that I definitely want to put out there was academicsupport.jhu.edu, which would go through some more of these academic resources that you have, like Pilot. Pilot tends to be it's mandatory for a good bit, I believe, of the STEM classes, as far as like for first years and sometimes second years as well, sophomores, where you have to go. It might be like an hour, later on in the evening or something like that. You're usually typically have to schedule those over the course of your first week of classes. So Pilot is the big one, but that's basically a peer-led tutoring session, you could say. You have Learning Den, you have review sessions, so where you can go to your professor or the TA and kind of get some extra, they'll have set hours, so not just office hours, but there's also specific where they're specifically focused on, hey, whatever this material is, or getting ready for an exam, not just an exam, but you guys meet at this time to go ahead and take care of that. Group tutoring, one-on-one tutoring, et cetera. But go ahead, check out that website. I definitely also just wanted to mention, generally speaking, the average student's GPA here is around a 3.2 to 3.3, which is really, really good. However, our team is well above that. We typically end up being around 3.65, 3.75. The ladies are usually around the 3.7s. The fellas have typically been around like the 3.6s to 3.7, ladies in that 3.7, 3.75 range. And that is awesome at a school like Hopkins. And I believe personally a big part of why they are so successful, number one, their time management and the discipline that comes with being a student athlete. But also number two, there's so many resources on your team. And so because so many people are doing the same thing as you to a degree, they're studying together. Somebody has likely taken the courses that you've taken. So that's an additional resource that you could utilize to help you get through whatever you're getting through. And so the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And for the most part at Hopkins, there's nothing new, so to speak, in regards to that. So somebody has likely been where you've been. And so it's in your best interest to take advantage of them as a resource. And so just kind of wanted to highlight that. And so that's a perfect segue. So I actually have, just to highlight this real quick, usually the number one question we get is how do individuals balance academics and athletics? And so I put that in quotations because we don't really believe in balancing. That's really not possible. You have to prioritize. And I alluded to time management earlier. That is really your biggest key when it comes to being successful at Hopkins. Is going to be how you manage your time. Because the reality is you actually end up with more time than you do as a high school student, because your class schedule isn't necessarily dictated to you where you got to be at school at, I remember when I was in high school, we started school at 7:15, we got out at 2:15, 2:15, excuse me. And then you had practice and wasn't getting home till like 6. And so all of that was, pretty much handled. Whereas on the collegiate scene, you might have 3 to 4 classes a day, but they might be a little bit more spaced out, or maybe they're all from that, 8 a.m. to 12 or something along those lines. By 12:50, you might be done. So you'll have a little bit more time, and what you end up doing with that will ultimately dictate how you go. And so 2 things I did want to highlight to help with that is our life design lab. I didn't put the website on here, but if you just Google Johns Hopkins University Life Design or Imagine Center, I think there's going to be something that's going to really interest you. Generally speaking, it's our version of a career center. And so, but it's way more intertwined. It's much more detailed than just a career center to help you find jobs. It really is going to also expand how you think. Hence why the term is called the Imagine Center. So it actually just opened up the building that they're located in. It's on the north side of the football field. Beautiful facility, brand new renovations opened up in September. And you really get the opportunity to just kind of imagine some possibilities that you might not necessarily thought about. Also wanted to highlight our sports psychologist. Currently, that's Ari Miller. He's been here, I believe, a couple of years now, and he has been a huge resource. And I don't know how many other Division III schools have their own sports psychologists to help. I have not mentioned on here, but we have the counseling center, which is very much available with plenty of certified clinicians, psychologists that is available to you. But it's a unique opportunity to also have a sports psychologist right in-house in the building that houses all of our athletic facilities and teams and everything like that. So he would be a good use. But I also had two of my athletes make a couple videos. So I'm going to drop this PowerPoint and shift gears to that and allow you just to listen to them. Kevin's video, I believe, is about 8 minutes, and Ash's video is about 5 minutes. And Kev will graduate this May, class of 2023, qualified in the 400 hurdles for an NCAA Division III national championship this past spring. And then Ash, she graduated this past spring, biophysics major. She's currently on her way to med school. She's already been accepted to a couple schools. She took a gap year, and she qualified for nationals this past indoor season in the distance medley relay. And I also put a lot of, we had a young lady qualify in the open 400 meter dash this past spring in nationals. And I really put a lot of her success, that individual success, on Ash's leadership. And so with that said, let's see if I can, hopefully it didn't, let me see if I stop sharing. Didn't mess up. And then let's go to my screen. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go screen share. Hopefully you can see this. I really hope with it. It's still recording, right? All right, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and play Kev's video.
What up, squad? Kevin here. Have a little party after this. Let's see if I can get this in 5 to 7 minutes. But Shed asked me to make a quick video for recruits just to see what it takes to be successful academically and athletically, and I thought I had a couple points to talk about. And the first one is to not expect perfection in both the classroom and the track, because you're going to find out you're not going to get an A on every test, and you're not going to PR on every race. And it's important to have realistic and attainable goals, but still try and push yourself. It's like an odd medium range to be in, but setting proper expectations for yourself and realizing, okay, you're on this next level of competition where everyone's just as good as you, pretty much. And everyone was also just really good at high school and really smart and really fast. And like, yeah, you're on this new plane of competition. It's exciting to be on, but it's also important to realize that you might not be running as quickly as you did in high school as you are getting acclimated to college life, whether that be diet, lifestyle, the training style, etc. And so with all that being said, it's still important to keep up the grind, keep up the work. Since you're coming to Hopkins, you probably know that you're expected to work here, you're expected to study. I'm sure you're all used to it in high school. And personally with me, I had a schedule that was composed of go to school, go to practice, sleep, wake up for dinner, do homework, and fall asleep, and basically repeats. And college is similar in that manner where you spend most of your free time actually studying. It's not all doom and gloom because you can often study with friends, and I encourage that too. Having a group of people to surround yourself with and bounce ideas off or like motivate each other is also important wherever you go in life. And association breeds similarity, so you got to make sure you have the right friends who push you and make sure you develop good habits and keep you away from the bad ones. And yeah, if you have a good friend group, you can rely on each other and you can make it through tough classes or tough times on the track. And so another point I would say is being disciplined. And so, I mean, this goes back to studying and like having proper time management and making sure you study ahead and whatnot. But I often found this with staying up late and like getting enough sleep. Because back in my freshman year, a lot of my non-track friends, we all lived on the same floor, and they would stay up till 2, 3 a.m. every day, just talking, hanging out. It's like, oh, I want to be there, and I would stay there after I finished my homework for the day. But when 11 o'clock hit, I knew like, oh, especially when we had those early morning practices at 7:45, and like, okay, guys, I'll see you later. I had to head to bed, but obviously it extends to more than just common room shenanigans. That's parties, and I'm not saying don't go to parties, but just make sure you make good decisions. Not stay up too late. I had a couple parties for Vila. Then we had a track meet the next day. I was like, okay, I either gotta cut this short, or I gotta skip. So I'm ready for that like 7 a.m. bus for the meet the next day. And the one instance that did happen, I did PR, so it was pretty hype. But anyway, yada yada. Just be smart. Obviously, if you drink and stay up late, your recovery is going to be inhibited, and that's just not the best for either track or the classroom. And then moving on more so with track specific, always talking to your coach and communicating, as especially in college. As you get better and you become more invested than you did in high school, you're going to do more of your own research, and you're going to think one thing, your coach is going to think another, and sometimes you might be right. But it's important to communicate that and discuss with your coach, like, hey, I'm feeling we should do this instead, or do more of these types of drills and whatnot, and make sure you're on the right page. Because at the end of the day, usually the coach decides what races you're going to be put in and your whole training plan for the entire year, because they set it up in whole cycles that last weeks and months on end. So even in the small frame, it's like, oh, I don't know why we're doing this specific type of workout. It's important to realize they're probably thinking in a much bigger time frame. And so just talking to them and really just getting to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, I think is super important. And realizing too that keeping up with the little stuff, of course, I keep reiterating sleep and getting rest. Another thing is stretching or whatever you do to prevent injuries. I tend to see in my teammates where you get injured once, you stay relatively injury prone. And so if you can try to not get injured, that would be great. Because for some people, it's pretty hard to get back to their previous shape. And so we had one girl, she got third at nationals last year, Annie. She was a multi, but she was discussing her habits, and she like ate, she watched Netflix, and she went to bed most days. She was a grad student at that point, and her classes were relatively chill, but you get my point. And so I'm already at 6 minutes, so I'll try to keep going quickly. And so, yeah, as you get faster, you get more invested, you read more textbooks, you analyze your film, and instead of your coach just talking down at you, it's more of a dialogue to figure out what's best for you as the athlete, as you realize you can have more specialized training, because you are, I guess everyone's a pretty unique athlete in that sense. And also coming into practice with a clear state of mind and not bring any bad vibes. So making sure any drama in your life, one, either just don't have drama, or two, leave it out, fresh in your mind, like, okay, we're at practice right now, we're going to focus on track, and that's it. And don't let it impede your success. And then for academic support, I would say there's things like pilot and learning that specifically at Hopkins. And so figure out what you like, try a little bit of everything. Some things are overhyped, I would say, like pilot. It really depends on the person you get who tutors you. But that being said, it's like, just because someone says, a lot of people say, hey, do this, don't necessarily think it's always the best thing. If it's the best usage of your time or whatnot. So just be aware of that. And the last thing I would say is don't be afraid to try other things in college too. Maybe Chef won't like this, but I think there's other things in college besides running too. I'm part of a dance team. I'm president for my environmental engineering club, and it's important these 4 years you have all these activities open to you, basically for free, and it's important to take advantage of it, understanding that it goes academics, make family, academics, athletics, and then everything else. But as you get more acclimated to school life and you can handle it more, it's like, okay, you can slowly build on other activities you want. And yeah, it wouldn't be quite as fun if you didn't have other activities, in my opinion. But to each their own. And with all that being said, I hope that rambling made sense to you guys, and I wish you the best of luck. See ya.
All right. Kev's the man. I completely agree with him. I actually do want you to have other things. Please have other things. I simply would just second his final point was as you acclimate to school and track, that's your best time to take it in. So many, when I mentioned the first point I mentioned to you all is time management. So many of them will get within 2, 3, 4 weeks of just being on campus as a freshman. And then eventually they become overwhelmed. And I simply be like, you did this to yourself. You came here, your schedule was open, got your 16 credits, 15 credits, whatever. But then the more that they take on, the less time they have. And then they also find out that their passion for this sport begins to dwindle because you only have but so much time to do but so many things. But go after what you want to pursue. I'm all for that. And that will help you. I used the word prioritize earlier, but that will actually bring some balance, a semblance of a balance to your experience as a whole. And so please do that. I also wanted to share another video from Ash.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I graduated from Hopkins in May of 2022.
Oh, it didn't work. Hold up. Let's see.
No. Hi, I'm Ashley. I graduated.
All right, we'll try this one more time. I don't know why I won't show her face, so it might just be sound, unfortunately. But make it good.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I graduated from Hopkins in May of 2022. And at Hopkins, I was a sprinter on the track team. I ran mostly the 400, and I graduated with a degree in biophysics. And so coming to Hopkins, I feel it is quite challenging to balance academics and athletics. You know, a lot of people are going to be the smartest people from their high school who probably didn't have to study very much to get straight A's there. And while Hopkins is a breeze for some people, balancing athletics and academics really is no small task. So in high school, you probably went to class most of the day and then went to practice, went home, did a couple hours of homework, and then went to bed for the night. College courses require you to go to class for a much smaller amount of time and then do most of your learning outside of class. And class is basically a time just to clarify concepts you've already learned on your own and ask questions. So at Hopkins, that's one of the first big mistakes people can make. You don't do all of your learning in the classroom. You have to put in work outside of class. And to be successful in this, the biggest thing you need to be good at is time management. For me, being super busy with track meant that I was even better at managing my time because I just had less time in my day that was free. I knew that the 30 minutes in between classes was best spent getting ahead on assignments or doing quick readings. And I found that finding success really required you to be proactive. So that means sometimes you have to do readings or problem sets a week in advance. You know, you have an exam coming up the next week, so you have time to study all week. Or, you know, you might need to write or rush up a paper early because you know you'll be out of town for a meet that weekend. And if you're not proactive about a lot of things, it's very, very easy to fall behind in classes and let your grades slip when, you know, you're spending so much time at the track and running. And I found at Hopkins to also balance academics and athletics, you have to be assertive. You know, if you find yourself struggling early on, you have to get very good very quickly at reaching out for help and using all your resources. Hopkins doesn't want anyone to fail, and they have a lot of resources and tutors and classes to help you, but they're not going to just give you anything. So you have to be assertive and advocate for, you know, extensions and regrades on assignments or extra help on things. So I think my biggest advice is if you come to Hopkins is to make sure you're very on top of things from the beginning. And that goes back to being proactive. The environment is one that makes it very easy to fail and it's very easy for you to fall behind if you're not on top of everything. When it comes to balancing track and academics and being successful, you have to really use the little time throughout the day. Don't be tempted to waste 30 minutes between the end of classes and the start of practices doing nothing. You have to use that time to sort of knock out a reading or do extra stretching or do something productive in your day so you don't have to be productive at night. And that leads to the next big thing. You have to get your sleep at Hopkins. A lot of people fall into a vicious cycle of staying up late, they're tired, and then they skip classes, and then you fall behind, and then you have to stay up even later the next day to catch up further. When in reality, if you just went to sleep earlier and went to your classes and didn't have to make up anything later, you'd actually be saving a lot of time. When it comes to track, good sleep habits also keep you going, and they also keep you healthy. A lot of people freshman year struggle with injury just because they aren't sleeping. And so, your freshman year, a lot of things change in your life. You're getting new training, new food at the dining halls, newfound freedom, and all of that can really impact your performance on the track. And a lot of that's out of your control. But, sleep is one of those things that is in your control. And personally, well, a lot of people have done it. I've never pulled an all-nighter at Hopkins, and I was successful and I did well. There's always that pressure to stay long in the library and socialize with friends. But, you have to keep in mind, you need your rest to do well in class and on the track. And then the other big part of academics, I mentioned this a little bit earlier with being assertive, but you also really need user resources. The good thing about Hopkins is, there's countless PA sessions. Being a part of the team, you have access to really any back tests, any study materials from any class you're going to take at Hopkins. Someone on the team has already taken it. That's one good thing about having a really large amount of athletes on the team. And then the other thing is, if you're struggling early on, reach out to Shed. He can connect you with tutors. There's people in the athletic department whose only job is to make sure you're succeeding academically. So, don't feel like, oh, Hopkins is so hard and track is so much time. There's a lot of people and a lot of resources out there that are going to help you be successful. And I think my final tidbit for how to balance school and track at Hopkins is to let track be fun. You're all trying to run at Hopkins because you love it, not because you're getting money or anything. So, don't stress too much over workouts when you get here. Let them be fun and challenging, and let practice be a place to bond with your teammates, because I feel like for me, practice was a bit of outlet for the stress at Hopkins. So, enjoy your time on the track and then get ready to reset, go to the FFC, eat a meal, and then get back to studying in the library after practice. But if any of you have any questions about anything, Shed can pass along my number, and feel free to reach out with anything. I've been in your shoes more often than not. I know what you're going through, and if not, I can connect you with someone that does. Good luck this season.
I really wish you could have at least seen her, but it is what it is. So I will stop sharing this, and then actually I should go back to. Go back to and presentation. Awesome. So please make sure you do pay attention to everything that you said. Obviously, that Ash said, as well as what Kev said. You can obviously rewind this video and go back and take notes as you need to. And so with that said, I was hoping to keep this at 50 minutes. I don't know where my clock is, but we'll see. So what we're looking for on the track, generally speaking, we think big. We have big goals. That is the vision of our head coach, Bobby Van Allen. And so we're going to continue to go in that same type of vein. Biggest one is obviously nationals. It is our goal to have representatives at nationals every year and ultimately make the podium, which is a team finishing in the top four. Obviously, you want to be number one. But when a team finishes in the top four, they make the podium. So we're looking to get individuals that can help us aspire and get to those goals. That's, big one. So this photo is actually from 2019 when our women finished third at nationals. 2020 there was no season. 2021, I don't remember how we did. But 2022, this past year, we also finished third on the women's side. The men's side, we've never been on the podium. But we always have individuals that qualify or finish as All-American. All-American is top 8 once you're at nationals. And so, matter of fact, actually, this past outdoor, Coach Jeb, he's in the back. Well, you can't really see me pointing. And Victoria, oh no, this is actually a different photo. Victoria won the national championship. We actually had 3 national champions one in the triple jump, long jump, that was Victoria, and then I believe Ella Barron indoors won the mile. And then Victoria actually won, I believe, indoors in the long jump as well. And so, but speaking, for this, so we're looking for national champs, All Americans, those that can just qualify for nationals. And that obviously takes time. It's not like you just come out of high school and do that, although some can. Most people are on the conference level. That's helping us to continue to win our conference championships. And don't quote me, I believe the women have won indoors and outdoors for the last 12 years now. Whereas the men, we had about I think like a 9 to 10 year streak. And we actually just lost during the outdoor season. And so that was pretty cool, though, in regards to it's a little newfound enthusiasm to, try and go back and get this again. So always looking for individuals that can help us on that level. In regards to training, so specifically for the sprints, these are photos of our track. Our track is 1.25 miles from our campus, so they do run over there. Once they get out of class, they do run over there. This is a photo of half of our weight room, and so we've been blessed to have a fully renovated weight room. As of last year, it opened up in 2021, where it was renovated. So it's basically 2 rooms that look like that photo, and so. And they also have some AlterGs, but I'll get into that later. And so generally speaking, the first thing is I post all their workouts on our website, my website, which is posted right there, nolimitsm0923.wix.com. You're more than welcome to check it out. There's plenty of resources on there, videos, links to tfers.org, which is where you can find every collegiate performance ever, for the most part, on anybody that's currently or was competing on the collegiate level. So we get 24 weeks of official practice. So school might start, the week before Labor Day, and they'll start with captain's practices, so volunteer practices during that phase. But when I say 24 weeks of official practice, this applies to any D3 school. The NCAA has given us 24 weeks. And so that comes down to 6 weeks in the fall, about 18 weeks in that January, February, March, April, and a week in May. And that's basically the season. So in the fall, we'll start up as far as official meaning coaches are allowed. This year, I believe that was October 17th. So it was like the 3rd week, I believe, in October, so to speak. So we had a couple weeks in October. I guess you could say 2.5 weeks in November, 3 weeks in November, and then the week that led into December. And so as of this video, we actually had our first meet this past last Friday. And so those are generally the 24 weeks. We generally go, I'm saying 4.5 days a week in the fall. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Mondays, we kind of were starting at around 4. Well, it was about 4:15, but once daylight started to dwindle, we tried to start at 4. Tuesdays, I'll have 2 groups, one at 3, and then one that comes at that 4:15, 4:30 range. Thursday, we all pretty much were at that 4:15, 4:30 range. And then Fridays, we were typically at 3 o'clock. Generally speaking. In the fall, Mondays is typically an acceleration theme day. Tuesdays is generally an intensive tempo theme day, regardless of whether you're 100, 200, 400 meter runner. Thursdays is typically a max velocity day. Now in September, there's a little bit more of like circuit format. But once we get to October, the theme is more just pure speed. And then Fridays is typically some sort of a hill day, at least when we were talking September, first half of October. Then it becomes a little bit more race prepping day. So, we might do a little mini hill workout, or when I say some of these hills, like hills even here at our track, you might do some hills, you might do some plows and some circuits, and then the 400 group might do a 300 all out, or short sprinters might do a 150 all out afterwards, or something like that. So that's kind of a typical look of in the fall. Lifting, generally speaking, is 2 or 3 days a week. So pretty much all of our fellas this year are on a 3-day-a-week plan, at least for the fall. So that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Wednesday, they kind of get in when they can, whatever their schedules allow. And so that's also why I have that in quotation. So Monday and Friday, they'll have an actual set time, which has generally been right after practice. We've been fortunate. So usually like 6:15, so to speak. They'll get their lifts in on Mondays. Fridays is usually 5 when we get out. They practice at 3. By the time we get back to campus, like maybe 5. And then those that are lifting on Wednesday, we have a set time slot, but they can go in during any of the open hours. And this year, that's actually like 10 to 4. And so that's pretty much all the guys. About a few of the ladies will lift 3 days a week, but most are on a 2-day-a-week plan. And so in place of the 2 days a week where they go Monday, Friday, rather, they'll get on the Alter G, which is an awesome, I call it our secret weapon training tool. Well, it's not in this photo. I don't think I posted another photo of our weight room. We have 2 Alter Gs in the back of the other room. in the weight room, as well as one in our in the training room. And I will use that as basically it's a mechanism that allows you to almost decrease your body weight. So it minimizes the impact that you would have, on land running or even on just a regular treadmill, as it minimizes your body weight. So I'll usually have them doing workouts anywhere between like 70 to 85% of their body weight, and we can bump up the speed. So you can get up there safely, run about 18 miles per hour, which I believe is 50-second 400s or 25-second, 200s. So to speak. So that is a tool we'll definitely use. We also use that as a cross training means for, those that might be rehabbing injuries and all those types of things. So we'll use that a lot. I wanted to highlight our trainers. So I believe Hopkins, we have, 8 full-time athletic trainers. We have one that is specific to us, that deals with all of our student athletes. And I believe right now she manages our entire track team as well as men's soccer, if I'm not mistaken. And then our strength coach, who is absolutely awesome. He has really done a great job, really just revitalizing, and really just obviously getting them stronger, but getting our student athletes to really fully buy in, both male and female, to the benefits of the weight room. And so we're just kind of really figuring out on an individual level, especially once we're in competition season, how that looks per the individual, because it is different to a degree per the individual, and some of that's trial and error. Also, we have a nutritionist that is available to you. You just simply reach out to one of our trainers who can put you in touch. So, if you need some assistance there, kind of already mentioned that. So when I mentioned like that 4.5 days, like I said, some is like the Wednesday. Some might also go for a Sunday run. Typically, some of our 400 or 800 runners on their own, they might go run like 3, 4, 5, or 6 miles, depending on the individual and what their strengths are. Cross training is really big. Alter G, bikes, pool, yoga, normateching, etc. A lot of this is also available in the rec center, which also was renovated October of 2021. So there's a lot available to you there. You can go to the rec center website. I don't even know if they actually have updated photos on there, but you can check that out. Once we get to the spring, we're basically, I would say, 3.5 days a week. So we're still using Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. However, with the meets, and when I say spring, I'm talking January through first week of May. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, meets on Friday or Saturdays. And so I've already mentioned the lifting, but again, for the spring semester, it just kind of cuts down to 2 days a week for pretty much all the guys and some of the ladies. And then for most of the ladies, it'll probably just be a Tuesday. And then if we have a meet on a Friday, but if we have a meet it'll be a Tuesday and a Saturday if we have a meet on a Friday. If it's a meet on a Saturday, they'll just likely stick with Tuesday. And then Alter G. All right. And our meet schedule is very competitive. Coach Van Allen has always made that paramount that we're pretty much going to put our athletes in the most competitive situations possible here. So in some situations, we might get spanked, but that is where we really grow. Because again, this is about challenging. I mentioned earlier, as far as like my vision is challenging how you think, how you see, how you relate to others, all those types of things. Well, on the track, the only way you can really get challenged is to get pulled. I'm not looking for instant success, because we're really looking to push you. And as you come against that, we're looking to really create really breaking at those barriers and really create, those adaptations. And so for indoor, for the most part, about half the meets are Friday meets, half are Saturday meets. So some people usually will ask about class conflicts. For the most part, it's really not an issue. During the fall semester, we've had our first meet has typically been a Friday at Ocean Breeze. So that'll be really the only class that they miss. But that is your event, your professors, because of you, will notify them in advance. So well in advance. So it wasn't an issue for anybody at our meet this past last week. And so once the spring starts, i.e. January, we'll usually go back to Ocean Breeze 2 more times. We'll usually go to the Armory 1 or 2 times a year. We'll go to George Mason and then BU. And we'll take a small group that flies to BU. So usually like around 30 to 35 people will fly to BU. And that typically ends our regular season, while there's a small group that goes there. And then there'll be another group that goes to another meet. So this year, that'll be back to Ocean Breeze, take a week off, conferences, and then the first week of March, last chance meet for those on the verge of qualifying for nationals or securing their spot, and then nationals. And then outdoors, pretty short. It's basically the month of April with a little bit, stuff going on in May. Mostly Saturday meet, so there's really no real conflicts during that phase. Like typically, it's probably going to be 1, max 2 during the outdoor season, but that's also really dependent on what you're running, how you're running, and all those types of things. And so we'll usually start that first weekend in April with a meet in VA, or just go right up the street to Towson University We'll go to George Mason again. We'll go up to Bucknell in PA. Our home meet, so there's really no travel involved in there. And then a small group will go to Penn Relays at UPenn. And then typically a lot of the sprinters, multis, jumpers, vaulters will go to Shippensburg that Saturday, that last weekend in April. And then conferences is typically the first weekend in May. And then for those that, have a shot at qualifying for nationals or had a really, really good year, maybe they're about to graduate, want to give it another shot, we might take them to one or two last chance meets and then nationals. All right. Academically, what am I looking for? I'm hoping this video is going to end up being 50 minutes. We'll see. So generally speaking, middle 50th percentile of the previous year's admitted class. So if you go to that website link, it should be accurate as to what that group's, if you're watching this video 3 years after I made it and it's still up, check that out. This year, generally speaking, that middle 50th percentile from a GPA standpoint is around a 395 with a 4.0, and we're talking unweighted GPA here. It's generally around that range. Hopkins is test optional right now. However, when it comes to the athletic side, we don't really get too many that end up going the test optional route. So we still do emphasize testing, although that could change over the years. But as of right now, I can probably tell you 95+% of our admitted class has some sort of a testing component. And so that's generally when it comes to the ACT around a 34, and when it comes to the SAT being around 1510 plus. So you really kind of want to be over that barrier. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Generally speaking, looking for 3 to 4 fellas, 4 to 5 ladies. So even like right now, my current roster on the men's side, my seniors are around, I think, 3 because one graduated early. Junior fellas, my junior class is pretty big. I want to say there's probably around like 6, don't quote me. Sophomore class is the opposite, it's pretty small. It is 2. And then my current freshman class, I believe, is like 5, if I'm not mistaken. So sometimes it can fluctuate, but generally speaking, looking at 3 to 4. As of this writing, I currently have at least 3 guys coming in next year on the freshman side, but we'll probably add 1 or 2 more. And then on the women's side, current senior class are 4. Junior class is 3. Sophomore class is 4. And then my freshman class is pretty large. I believe I have 7 ladies this year. So it tends to fluctuate, but generally speaking, that's the average. Those are the marks that I generally look for. I really just like videos. Having been a high school coach, if I could see somebody, compete, then having been a high school coach, I know what potential could look like. And so just kind of, that's 100, 200, 400, 800 high hurdles, intermediate hurdles, as far as like 400 hurdles rather. So we had, and then 300 hurdles, then 400 hurdles. So those are the last 2 numbers. And then, so where do we go from here? Number 1, hopefully you complete our prospective student athlete questionnaire. That is big. That's where everything starts in regards to us even being familiar with you outside of you, sending us an email or anything like that. But once you're in our database, that's when we're able to really do, communicate and things like that. If I were giving you advice on what you could do, whether you're a sophomore, junior, senior, obviously a little bit more limited when it comes to you being proactive with your course selection. So if you're looking at a school like Hopkins or, something along those lines, you want to take the most rigorous courses that are possible. That's what's really ultimately going to best prepare you, assuming that you're doing really well in those classes. That's what's going to put you in the best position here. And also ACT and SAT prep. That's going to be really vital for you. Those are probably the 2 biggest things that you ultimately can control. It goes without saying, strong academic performance, straight A's or mostly A's, having, what's on your, I guess you could say, resume, so to speak, your summer programs, internships, research, all of that, clubs related to your academic interests. And then when it comes like essay time and everything like that, how you can articulate how you can impact the university versus you're just somebody that's just going to graduate. That can just kind of help see, hey, you bring value to the university. And so that could certainly help you. And then I would recommend that you strongly be open to consider an early decision for whatever school ends up being your number 1. Hopkins is extremely, extremely competitive through the admissions process. I believe last year, 38,000 people were admitted, and this is to fill, you're talking 1,200 slots, because I believe the undergrad population is somewhere around like 5,500, give or take. So that's probably around 1,200-ish or so per class. And so most of them do come through, at least for us, most come through ED. So you could probably say it's probably yeah, for us, most come through ED. So even specific to my sprints, if I'm looking at my current women's group, I only have one that came through regular decision. The other 17 or 18 ladies were all early decision. And the fellas side is probably a little bit more representative of the university, but it's going to continue to go up, where probably 65 to 70% came through ED and maybe 30% got through RD. RD is just too selective. And some of those marks that I mentioned to you earlier, just because you can be in that range, it means nothing through regular decision. The standards are a lot higher, and you gotta have to show even more that you have available to you. So I would recommend, regardless of Hopkins, because this is how university, politics is kind of going, so to speak. Politics is not the right word, but decisions are being made. It's in your best interest to get all this information, over the course of your junior year, sophomore year, through your senior year, visits, talking to coaches, engaging, hopefully taking advantage of, resources like this, so that hopefully by that September, October timeframe, you kind of have a ranking of, hey, these are your schools in order. You can go visit, and then you can kind of narrow it down by that early decision 1 or early decision 2 period. Like, hey, this is where I want to be, and just kind of go from there. All right. And so hopefully this was efficient enough. The original one I made was like 94 minutes, I believe. So I was trying to get one that's in that 50-minute range. Hopefully it's that. So I hope this helped you. And I'm looking forward to being able to work with you. All right. And then I think I can go ahead and stop recording. I don't want to end this video, but I do want to stop the recording. All right, now y'all take care.